Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Washington State Department of Agriculture virtual press conference. My name is Carla Salp. I'm the Public Engagement Specialist with WSDA and am an agency spokesperson for the Asian Giant Hornet Project. This morning, we'll be hearing from Sven Spichiger with an update on some more exciting activities that we had last week with Asian Giant Hornet. And Vikram Iyer from the University of Washington will also make a statement about the technology that was used in last week's activities. Both gentlemen will be available for questions from members of the press. We would also like to ask your help again to spread the message to the public to encourage them to report every hornet every single time they see one, especially for the next few weeks. The best way to report is using our online reporting form on our Hornets page at agr.wa.gov/hornets. Next best is to email us at hornets@agr.wa.gov. And finally, we have a hotline that can accept reports at 1-800-443-6684. We have some videos and photos of our activities from this past week uploaded to our Box account for media use. Links to the media are available in the media advisory that went out earlier today. If you have not signed up for our news releases, you can do so on our website under Contact Us, or if you email me, I can send you the link to sign up. And I can also send you the link for the photos and videos that we have. You can reach me at ksalp, that's K, S as in Sam, A, L, P as in Paul, at agr.wa.gov. There are separate links for the videos and the photos, just as an FYI. Again, the family that caught the second live Asian Giant Hornet has asked that the press send interview requests to me, and I'll forward those on to the family, and they'll respond as they so choose. One last reminder, please keep your line muted to ensure the best sound quality for everyone. Sven, please go ahead and unmute yourself and go ahead.
All right, good morning, everybody. It's been about 2 Fridays since we gave you an update, and as Carla pointed out, we had some activities going on up a little to the east of Blaine, Washington last week. I'll give you a few additional updates before I go into that on detail. We got a trap capture in Blaine proper, about a mile south of the initial detection that we got in December last year. This happened on Friday, October 9th, and so that is a new positive for this year, and we're responding by hanging some live traps around that as well. In addition, our Canadian counterparts also on October 9th got a positive Asian Giant Hornet hit due north of where we were actually working next week. And this is a property that is adjacent to the United States, right on the border. And so, again, it's in very close proximity to where we were working. I don't have any other details on that other than that was also captured on October 9th. So there's 2 updates that happened last Friday. Now for last week, so as Carla pointed out, one of our residents was able to capture another live Asian Giant Hornet, and this is at the same location that we had an attempt at 2 weeks ago. This happened on October 5th, and we did our first attempt at tracking on this specimen on October 6th. Unfortunately, we must have shorted out the transponder or something because we had a technical problem with it on the 6th, so we tabled our activities until October 7th. October 7th, we were able to keep the Hornet alive through the evening by feeding her strawberry jam, and she seemed to like that quite well. This Hornet was a lot feistier, if you will, than the first one that we were attempting our tagging activity with, and a very durable specimen indeed. So on the morning of October 7th, unfortunately, we got an extremely heavy bank of fog roll in, and we had to delay the start of the day a little past where we wanted to, but it did finally clear up enough around noon. And the reason we were waiting for the fog to clear is so that we could have clear sight lines to basically visual aids in the distance, like tall trees and things like that, so that we could gauge what direction we should be going in with the tracking. We'd like to thank everybody for all of the suggestions for glue because of the first attempt, but we basically eliminated any problem with glue by switching to using dental floss, which we tie around the petiole, which is the thin area of a wasp. And this worked quite well and basically eliminates any issues that we might have using glue. This worked like a charm. Chris Looney, our chief entomologist out there, was able to tie the tracking device on very quickly, and we were able to move her over to a nearby apple tree. We did this because some of our European counterparts suggested that when tagging hornets, it's a good idea to give them a flight platform that's a little bit up off the ground to leave off of, and this worked out very well. Carla mentioned we have some photographs of the hornet on an apple tree, and they turned out very well, so please take advantage of that. After a brief period of time, she cleaned herself for a little bit and she took off for flight. She did a spiraling orientation flight, and this is what they do to get themselves reoriented to the surroundings. And this actually went about 40 feet up into the air in a spiraling pattern, and she then rested on a nearby tree. For about 5 minutes, she took flight again and took rest on another tree, also about 40 feet in the air. This time, resting on a patch of heavy vegetation adjacent to a house that was also quite a ways away from where we had started. This was a pretty scary moment for us because this entire patch was very heavily not planted with, but it had quite a bit of Himalayan blackberry, so it was very difficult to operate in that area. About 10 minutes. And it was exiting the area on one of our tracking, and at that point it was lost for the day on surrounding areas, especially in the direction that it was last seen. Trying to relocate the signal, but unfortunately that was unsuccessful, but to the choosing location and we
Sven, I'm going to interrupt for 1 second. Yeah, we're having some technological issues with you, Sven. I'm not sure if you can. Hi, Sven. This is Carla. I don't know if.
Again, Carla, was there that I need to mention?
Sven, this is Carla. Can you hear me? This is Carla. Can you hear me? Sorry, everyone. I hope you can hear me. We seem to be having some issues with Sven's feed. I'm going to try and contact him and see if he can try and shut down anything he has running on the computer. One moment, please. Thank you for your patience. Okay, it sounds like I'm coming through fine based on feedback. We're having some issues getting Sven's feed to come through clearly. Sven, if you get my message or you can hear this, please try shutting down anything that is using the internet on your computer. We're going to move on to Vikram and then maybe try to go back to Sven to finish up that statement. Vikram, if you're available, please go ahead.
Sure.
You'll need to unmute yourself. Perfect.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Vikram. I'm a PhD student at the University of Washington, and I've gotten involved with this group on trying to help with these radio tracking efforts. My lab at UW has been working on building small wireless sensors and radio tags that we can put on live insects, and we've adapted some of the technology that we were working on to help out with tracking the Asian giant hornets. I'll just give a brief overview of how that works. Basically, what we've got is we have these little devices that have a small Bluetooth chip on them, along with an antenna and a small battery. And what these things do is they work a lot like those little Bluetooth things that you can attach to, say, your keys or whatever else to try to find those. This sends out a signal about twice a second. And by using the radio signals that these things send out, we can track where they are in space. This is the same sort of approach that's used in traditional wildlife tracking for large animals. But think this is just shrunk down to a really small size. On the receiving side, what we have is we have these very directional antennas. So think your phone is it's designed to receive radio signals from kind of any direction, whereas the antennas that we're using for this tracking work think it's like a lens that's very focused in a particular direction. So by pointing it towards or pointing it in different directions, we'll see we can see how strong the signal from the transmitter on the Hornet is and figure out what direction it's flying. The other advantage that I'll mention of using Bluetooth as the core technology behind this is that you can actually pick up these transmissions on anyone's phone. And one of the cool things that we were able to do here is we had a group of people around, the neighbors that lived in this area. They were actually able to download an app on their phone and also help in these efforts when we were trying to follow them or follow the Hornet. And this is helpful for especially for being able to search over a wide area in a scenario where you completely lose the animal. And so that's kind of at a high level how this tracking technology works.
Great, thanks. Sven, let's try you again, see if we've resolved any of your sound issues.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. It sounds better. I think the last part where we were really kind of getting you was when you talked about the spiral flight upward. So if you can restart your report from kind of that point.
Sure. Sorry, folks. We have internet connectivity issues sometimes out here where I live. So, okay. So, yes, we had placed her on top of an apple tree. She did warm up, very frisky individual, like I said, and then she took her spiraling orientation flight. Hornets will do this when they're lost, just to get an idea of what their surroundings are. She immediately then went to an adjacent tree, and we were able to locate her very quickly using the tracking devices. She rested there for about 5 minutes and then moved to another patch of woods. After that time, she took flight again and ended up landing on the ground somewhere in a very heavily vegetated area that had a lot of Himalayan blackberry. And she remained there for about 10 minutes and then suddenly took off, triggering a signal again on one of our staff members heading away. We then broke up and started searching the area where she was last seen, but were unable to locate the signal again. We regrouped after a little while, drew up some more search grids, and did searches again for the rest of the afternoon, and unfortunately were not able to get a hold of the signal again. However, we did get an initial direction of the flight. We were able to meet with several local property owners and get a few more eyewitness accounts of seeing hornets earlier the week before or earlier in the summer. And so we are starting to narrow down exactly where the hornet nest is that is in that area. And so looking forward to just working pretty hard. Our head entomologist, Chris Looney, is going to be staying up there probably for the next 2 weeks, pretty much continually, and we'll all be ready to do tracking once we are able to capture another live hornet. And so pretty successful day. Unfortunately, we lost the signal, but very happy at how well it worked. We were able to get 4 groups of people surrounding the hornet as she was flying along until we lost the signal. So we're pretty sure this is going to lead us right to where we need to go. So, Carla, was there anything else I need to cover?
I think you were mentioning we might use a different radio tag in the future.
Sure. We do have a couple of radio tags that have a distance that carries quite a bit further and a bit stronger signal. Those are on order. It takes a little time for those to be produced and to come. The reason we don't keep these in stock is they have a very low shelf life. In fact, we need to use them within a few weeks of activation. And even then, if you don't activate them, they do not last more than a few months, is what we're being told. So it's kind of a real guessing game as to how many you're going to need. We have a few coming. They should be here within the next 3 weeks and ready to be used. We may also be able to make use of some leftover tags from a USDA study this summer in Massachusetts. Their tags are set to expire, so we might be able to make use of those, but we need to check our equipment a little closer before we give those a try. But yep, everything's progressing as much as possible. We're still continuing to get trap hits, and with the Canadian find near where we're at as well, we know our counterparts in Canada are also doing everything they can as well. So, you know, just keep on keeping on, and pretty soon I'm very hopeful that we'll have a nest and perform an eradication. Carla?
Great, thanks, Sven. And Sven, I don't know if you heard it, but while you were gone, or reconnecting, Vikram Iyer from the UAW gave a little statement. So I think we're ready now to take questions from folks. Again, as we're probably familiar with, please use the raise your hand function, and I will call on you and I will unmute your line so that you can ask a question. You can also submit questions using the chat function, and you can submit questions to either Sven or Vikram. They're happy to take questions at this time. Once again, apologize for the technical issues that we've had and interrupted the flow a little bit. But Joe Tian, I'm going to unmute your line and you can ask your question.
Thanks very much. If and when you're able to locate a nest, how would you eradicate it?
Okay, no problem. So we started out with some pretty basic stuff, which is just using an insecticide injected into the hull. But after meeting with a local company that collects yellow jacket nests for anti-venom, it came to our attention that a vacuum system actually is a lot more efficient, and then no messy paperwork associated with pesticides. And we're always striving to do things as, you know, environmentally friendly as possible. turns out it works very well. We've actually tested this at night, the theory being that most hornets will be in the nest at night. But after doing that, donning our full hornet suits and everything, we sort of decided that a dawn assault would be better. After vacuuming out as many specimens as possible, we will then lower a tube down into the ground nest and inject carbon dioxide gas, which will knock out any that are remaining, extract it using hand tools such as shovels, mattock, that type of thing, to remove the nest, brood, and any remaining pupae. And after that, fill the hole back in. Honestly, we think it'll go pretty smoothly. We've practiced it a few times and we're ready to go. Obviously, we haven't practiced it with giant hornets trying to sting us, but we have every confidence that the suits will protect us.
Great. Kathy Hedberg, you are next. Your line is unmuted.
No, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to do that. No questions.
No worries. All right. I don't think I see any questions in the chat unless I have missed any. If there are any other questions, please, again, use the raise your hand function or enter your question into the chat box, and we'll be happy to answer that for you. Okay, we have a question from Cairo Radio, looks like. Do you still believe that there are 2 or more nests in Whatcom County? If so, will you be able to eradicate both or all before the breeding season?
Good question. There's definitely at least 2 nests is what we believe, and that's what our trapping and public report information is telling us. Could be a third. We did just get a trap hit in downtown Blaine, which is a little too far away from the other areas we're working to not be considered as a possible another nest. And will we be able to eradicate all or both before the breeding season? That really depends on how, I don't want to say luck, but there is quite a bit of forested area in the areas that we're working, and it's a very difficult process. We believe the tagging is just going to get better and better. Like I said, I believe we've narrowed down the one to the east of Blaine, and I believe we're probably going to find that within the next few weeks. Not so sure about the one in Birch Bay. We had 2 hits and then a public report quite a bit earlier. We've been live trapping there for over a month now and have had no additional public reports, no additional trap finds. And so I'm a little concerned about that one because we're having some difficulty even finding data points to help us locate it at this point. And then of course the new one in Blaine is just that happened Friday, and that's the first one we have. So we will do everything we can to eliminate the nests. Whether we happen to be able to do this before breeding season is, of course, in question because we are starting to approach breeding season now. One of the things that is going to help us locate additional nests is the fact that they will start preying upon honeybee hives at this point. We've set up a special hotline for our folks who are running hives, especially in Whatcom County. We ask that it only be used for people to report live attacks. We've had a few folks contact that line with other issues, and we're happy to answer the other issues, but this line, of course, is specifically set up for people to report hives being attacked. In an instance like that, we will be able to put our tracking technology really to the test because there will be constant onslaught of live hornets coming. And so certainly we want to still locate and kill as many nests as possible, and that will unfortunately for the beekeepers aid us in helping us do our job. It's not the point of the season we wanted to get to, but that's where we're at. And so just using every tool at our disposal and accepting the help from the beekeeping community and the general public as well with their reports is the pathway to victory here, if you will.
Question from Jeff Ott. Have there been any confirmed AGH attacking local beekeepers' apiaries?
Not this year. At least 2 in 2019 that are confirmed with specimens, one that we're pretty sure which is confirmed with piles of decapitated bodies. Those all happened towards the end of October last year, as best we can tell. The first reported one, the beekeeper doesn't know the exact date, but we also believe, according to him, that was also in October. So there definitely are some hives that have been attacked last year, none yet this year.
And I think this is probably going to answer the next question, but Don Jenkins asked, are there any beekeepers calling the emergency line set up by the department?
We monitor that one after hours and on our days off, and I've been contacted twice. Once was somebody from New Jersey with a question, once was somebody with Louisiana from a question. So we're trying to reiterate how important it is that that line is only used by beekeepers during a live active attack. And so, no, we have not received a report on that line from a beekeeper yet.
And just to emphasize, beekeepers in Washington State.
Absolutely.
Unfortunately, we can't help people in New Jersey and Louisiana. So another question from Don Jenkins. How close does the phone app have to be to detect the signal? This might be one for Vikram.
Sure. So on a typical smartphone, we saw that this would work to about, say, 20, 30 feet in an open area. Basically, what happens is when you're in a pretty open area, the radio signal can propagate much farther. Whereas in a dense stand of trees, it's going to be bouncing around off of a lot of different things, and so that degrades the quality of the signal and the range at which you can receive it. So with our larger antennas that I mentioned are more sensitive in a particular direction, we were able to see the signal across a field, say a few hundred feet, in an open space, and then more like down to say 30 feet or so in like a dense forest area.
Great. And just so everyone knows, there are some photos. I think it's Chris Looney using one of the little antennas in the photos that we provided for the media. I think that's all the questions that we have so far. Yes, last call for questions. And just a reminder, we do have quite a few photos from last week's activities, as well as a couple of videos, including a video of the Asian giant hornet taking off with the tracker from the apple. Go ahead.
It looks like there's one other question, the first one in the chat that I see, about why the signal was lost. I can just answer that briefly. Basically, the insect landed in that patch of heavy vegetation that Sven mentioned, and it was, we thought it was actually pretty close to the ground at that point. That's kind of the direction that all of our receivers were indicating, and it was just sitting there for a decent period of time, and we thought that maybe that's where it was going to stop. But then at some point it basically flew out and flew past us. These things, they move. We found out that they move very quickly. I think in one of those periods where it went from one stand of trees to another, that was I would guess a couple hundred feet or so. It was gone within a few seconds. So basically it flew past us and then out into another stand of trees, and that's where we lost it.
Thanks. I appreciate the help tracking the questions. I sometimes lose them in the mix here. So we do have another question. How many total hornets have been trapped or located this year? Sven, do you want to take that, or should I?
Why don't you go ahead? I'll correct it if you're missing one.
Okay. So at our last press conference, we had 15. We had 3 additional confirmed specimens. So we're up to 18 confirmed by photo or a specimen. But there are additional sightings that we are considering probable but aren't in our official count. Does that sound right, Sven?
It sounds right. And does that include the specimen from Langley, which very clearly looks to maybe be related to what we were working on last week?
Excellent question. No, these are only U.S. detections. And by U.S., I just mean Washington State. Okay, I think that's all of the questions. Once again, we really appreciate you helping push out the, oh, I see another question popping in, just one second. We really appreciate everyone helping push out the message that we need every Hornet reported every single time that people detect them, because even without the tracking devices, that can potentially help us triangulate where a nest might be. So helping people to know where to report those online or with the email or with a phone number will be really helpful. We do have a couple more questions that popped in here. Don Jenkins is asking, will tracking a Hornet require an upgrade in the tracking devices?
It really depends on the situation. We're in some very heavily forested areas, and so we need a signal that might carry a little further than what we're using right now. So we're going to try all of them. Like I said, as the slaughter phase starts, unfortunately, we will get opportunity to test many different techniques. We've only had the 2 specimens so far to work with, and this worked out very well. Because it was on the ground, like Vikram explained, we kind of thought maybe she was done and heading down into the nest, and then she just got past us. And you really have to keep up with them with such a short distance that you can pick the signal up, or at least get an idea of what direction you need to be going in. And so, yeah, we're going to try a few things that have a stronger signal that carry for a little longer and last a little bit longer as well. We'll have a few weeks to try to pick the signal back up once we think we're in the right area. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah,
I think so.
I can add a couple of things to that. One reason why, as Sven mentioned, the pretty much any of these tracking devices, like the ones that he was talking about, would expire after some period of time. The big issue there is the battery. I'm assuming that those would come pre-charged, and after some period of time, the batteries have a shelf life, and they will just, they won't work after some time. And that's the that's the same sort of issue that we have, but of course I'm around to help troubleshoot the tags that we've been using so far.
Yeah, I actually wanted to add, having the ability for anybody to pick up a cell phone and assist us with it is actually a huge benefit, even if the signal strength might not be as strong or carry as far. The radio trackers that we ordered, unfortunately, you need fairly expensive specialized equipment. And so, it's kind of a toss-up. You have 2 people wandering around with a very strong tracker, or you have 100 people assisting you with one that doesn't maybe carry as far. So I prefer to have as many tools working as we possibly can. So we're going to try everything until we can find the nests and get rid of them. Fortunately, just to expand just a little bit, I am very optimistic that we're only really seeing hits in a couple of areas. We expected it was going to be far worse than this, and we're really focused on 2 or 3 areas in Whatcom County. So that encourages me, because I was afraid we might have to be focusing on the entire western half of the state, because we just didn't know what was going on, and it looks like we really are concentrated in one area, which does give us a fighting chance.
Great. And Kathy asked whether the total numbers that we gave earlier include this year and last year. And yes, they do. Those are since our first reports last in 2019 through this year. And I think I mentioned this in our last press conference, but we have a new public data dashboard up on our website. So if you go to agr.wa.gov/hornets and then click on the data tab, that should be up to date now. If it says 17, we're still getting one more up there, but we're trying to get that as real time as possible for you. And then there's another question. Why do they tend to hit beehives in October? Does it have anything to do with the breeding season?
Yes, absolutely. So they're really switching over to get these high protein meals and to help the brood get through. And it just seems to be part of their life cycle that they make this switch in October, at least in their native range. And certainly from the few hive attacks we've experienced here, they also seem to be in October. So that's why, and this precedes, unfortunately, the production of breeding cast. And so we're hurrying as much as we can, but there's a lot of ground for us to cover. We will continue our efforts, though, until we win.
Thanks, Sven. And I don't know if Sven was there, but both Sven and Vikram mentioned the public helping with their phones, and that actually did happen last week. One of them picked up a signal when we were in a slightly different spot. So it really is helpful, and all the neighbors coming together they all downloaded the app and were wandering the woods trying to help us locate that. It was pretty impressive to see the public really taking that kind of investment in this. I believe that's all of the questions that we have.
Oh, actually, one more quick thing that I'll mention, a feature of the tracking tags that we didn't actually use this time. Remembered when you brought this up. The other feature we have on there is actually a temperature sensor that will tell us what the temperature is on the back of the Hornet, which would hopefully indicate when the animal is actually in a hive. And would also help us know when, if it lands at a particular spot and what we're seeing is just kind of ambient outdoor temperature, then it's probably going to fly off again. Whereas once it gets into the hive, because of all the insects in there, they tend to be pretty warm, I think around 90 degrees Fahrenheit or so. So that's hopefully something else that we can leverage in the future.
Great. Thanks, everyone. I think that's probably about it for today. Again, if you have any other questions, I invite you to reach out to me, Carla Salp. My email is ksalp, S-A-L-P, @agr.wa.gov. And again, we can't emphasize how much we appreciate you sharing this story with the public because they've really been absolutely critical in the success that we've had so far this year. So thank you, everyone, and have a wonderful week.
Thank you, everybody.